Let's go back, Stu, because we just looked at this on Friday. And if you look at early this year, early 2023, shortly after the midterms, there was a 2-point difference between the two of them in Iowa. 2 points, DeSantis and Trump. And that was when Ron DeSantis was coming off of his enormous and very impressive win down in Florida. And Trump was getting beaten up in the news for having picked or at least backed the wrong candidates in those midterms who failed mightily in state after state. And Trump sort of had the stench of losing on him at that time. Forget the indictments, those all helped him. And Ron had the glory of winning. But then time went on and the indictments came down, which soared Trump's numbers, and Ron got farther and farther away from his big win in Florida and sort of, left memory. And now things have dramatically changed. So there is a question about whether he should have gotten in earlier and just sort of taken the wind off of those, the sales he got from winning and used that to buoy himself to a stronger position earlier.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of strategic questions. I think suboptimal would be the word I would use to describe the rollout so far for DeSantis. There's a world in which he does great and starts beating Trump early. I mean, that could have happened. I just don't think. I think what we're talking about when DeSantis was very close, it was vibes, right? Trump was in a rough spot. He'd come off of a bunch of endorsement losses. As you point out, DeSantis came off of a big victory. It was a high point for him. Since then, the news has changed. I don't think DeSantis's message has changed. I don't think Trump's message has changed. But Trump has been dominating the news, and he will continue to do that. I mean, if you think back to when is the best Trump you've ever seen on the campaign trail? If I had to argue for a particular month of time, I would argue the last month of the 2016 election, where he came out of the Access Hollywood tape. He was in crisis and he just buckled down. He was on message every single day. He nailed it and wound up winning that election. If that Donald Trump exists throughout this election, no one is going to beat him. Ron DeSantis has no chance to beat him, and I don't think Joe Biden does either. But that is not the Trump we see every single day. A lot of times he goes off message. He could, I think, lose this. But I don't think just Ron DeSantis out of pure will can overcome a guy in the Donald Trump position. He's at 40%, probably a minimum in most of these states, which gives you a very minimal chance to try to find a window to defeat a candidate, especially when there's 11, people in the race. So you have the debate opportunity. He has a chance to do this. But I think it's important to look at this and understand that it might not be that Ron DeSantis is a terrible candidate or there's something wrong with Casey DeSantis's looks if he loses this. It might just be that Donald Trump is a particularly unique person who has a path to this that is almost difficult to deny.
Well, Dave, you tweeted out the other day an interesting thought. Quote, "What I keep coming up against is that Trump can win the nomination without a single current DeSantis supporter. DeSantis needs half of Trump's. I don't see how he can pull that off." It's a good point. I mean, DeSantis needs to wrest away loyal fans of Trump's. Trump doesn't need to wrest a single fan away from DeSantis. DeSantis, of course, his other lane is to consolidate the anti-Trump vote. But even that is not looking like a sure thing right now.
Yeah, I mean, that would be a disaster. I saw Alyssa Farah yesterday tweeted something about the only way that you beat Trump is you have to go after him. You have to attack him and call him a liar. And then she cited as her examples of people who are doing a good job of this as Chris Christie and Asa Hutchinson and Will Hurd. And it's like,
my God,
combined, they're at 3% in the polls. Like, what are you talking about?
Do what they're doing.
Do that. No, this is the problem in a nutshell, right? This is a very difficult needle to thread for DeSantis because he can't just come out and say Donald Trump was a bad president. He's on the record saying that Donald Trump was a good president. So what he's got to do, there's an analogy that I use. It's a biblical analogy. You'll forgive me for comparing Donald Trump to Moses, but Moses brought the Israelites out of slavery with Pharaoh and brought them to Mount Sinai. But because he broke the tablets of the law, he wasn't allowed to go to the promised land, right? Joshua had to take the Israelites to the promised land. DeSantis needs to be Joshua. And the answer isn't to take the Israelites back to Pharaoh, back to the rhino establishment or whatever you call it. The answer is to make the positive case to voters that I love what Trump wants America to be. I want America to be that too. And I have the unique skill set to actually make it happen this time.
Okay, but wait, but let me challenge you on that.
It's the only path I see.
So, but here's the thing. I think that's generally DeSantis's thought too. And if you look at how he's done the media over the past 4 months or so, he's been going to Trump-friendly media. He has definitely 100% been trying to get in front of media that Trump supporters watch. And it hasn't worked. It hasn't worked. So he's got to come up with some sort of a different plan. And he's not bashing Trump. He hasn't been over the past month, more so. But in most of that time, he hasn't been bashing Trump. He's been saying nice things about Trump and trying to focus his criticism on the left. It hasn't worked. The Trump fan base they remain where they've always been. So it must be extremely frustrating for him, right? Because it's like now he's going to try bashing Trump. I don't know that moves the needle either. To Stu's point, how the hell are you going to get around the former president of the United States who's still got a second term available potentially to him?
Yeah, Megyn, I think, though, one thing that the DeSantis team should probably think about is I don't think DeSantis is going to win tons and tons of voters over by going to conservative shows and making his case. That will help him with donors. If he's doing very well there, it'll help at some level. But what would excite, I think, the Republican base are the very viral moments that we've seen from DeSantis before when he's going after reporters and people on the other side. Put yourself in the firing line a little bit. Take the hits from people on CNN and then slam them and beat them. He's shown he's very, very good at this. Do that more and people will remember it.
That's a great point. We never see him doing that. We used to see that all the time down at the Florida state level when he was fighting over COVID. And it's one of the reasons he became a star. And now, Dave, he's on with all these conservative commentators, friendly commentators who barely challenge him. And the viewers, the Republican base comes to those exchanges already hating the liberal media, right? It's like he goes in, at least with his base, with an advantage. And he should be begging for them to take unfair shots at him because he's A, brilliant, and B, he actually is adept at fighting. But we have not seen that over the past several months.
Yeah, and Stu's right. I mean, we absolutely should. I last weekend I covered the Moms for Liberty event where both Trump and DeSantis spoke. And, the people that I spoke to there, they want someone who's going to fight for them. And that's what everybody thinks of Trump as. And DeSantis is so well positioned, specifically on those issues that moms are worried about, to go on MSNBC and have those fights. And even if he gets dinged every now and again, people are going to love that. And people will start to feel about DeSantis the way they feel about Trump, which is he's fighting for me. He's my man in the arena. So I think that's fantastic advice. I think he should be all over the left. I think kind of doing what RFK Jr. is doing on the right. RFK Jr. will go onto more right-leaning and conservative places, and it makes a splash, and people read about it, and they're interested in it. So, yeah, I think that's something that they could start doing very quickly that would be very, very effective.
Look, you did the tough thing during COVID. You paid your people and pulled your business through the pandemic. And now doing the tough thing could qualify you for up to $26,000 per employee at covidtaxrelief.org. Government funds are available to reward companies with 2 or more employees who stayed open during COVID. This is not a loan, and you don't have to pay it back. The program's complicated, but no one knows more about it than the CPAs and tax experts at covidtaxrelief.org. You pay nothing up front. They do all the work and share a percentage of the cash they get you. Businesses of all types, including nonprofits and churches, can qualify, including those who took PPP loans, even if you had increases in sales. You did the tough thing for your employees during COVID. Now let covidtaxrelief.org help get you up to $26,000 per employee. Visit covidtaxrelief.org. That's covidtaxrelief.org, covidtaxrelief.org. Hey, thanks so much for watching. If you like what you just saw, hit the subscribe button for more clips and full episodes.